You will be happy to know that today is not that kind of talk. I think we've had enough of those emotions for a little while. People often say things like, why would God make unhappiness? This is a question that sometimes accompanies a loss of faith connected with tragic or horrific events. The story of Buddha says that as a prince born, his father determined to give him a life that was, in fact, nothing but wonderful. No unhappiness, no loss, no negative emotions of any kind. But it didn't work. The prince still found himself feeling empty and at a loss. Smaller and smaller discomforts escalated in his mind and heart to larger and larger tragedies. The reality is that without adversity, we do not learn to deal with adversity. Without failure, success has no meaning. Without effort, accomplishments do not satisfy. Without blockades, we do not learn to persist. Without differentiation, we do not learn fairness or justice. Endless happiness, it turned out, is a bland emptiness like a song with only one note. Like discovering, though, that you like cashews in a can of mixed nuts the best, a can of only cashews is not as good as a can of mixed nuts. Sometime in the early 70s, it became well known that people who grow up with confidence and good self-esteem are more successful and happier than people who don't. Good self-esteem, it was decided, came from praise and success. If one were to grow up winning all the time and never failing, then obviously one would think of oneself as a winner, feel endlessly good about oneself, and success and happiness would follow. So, as a result, into prominence with educators, psychologists, and sociologists was the egalitarian method of raising and teaching kids. That is, every kid was praised and treated like a winner no matter what they did. Those that tried hard were praised the same as those that only went through the motions. Those that did the best were given the same reward as those that did the least. Rewards were invented and distributed for even the most mundane acts. The everyone gets a gold star idea. Sometime in the late 80s, I was sitting in a food court in a mall and overheard a conversation between high schoolers. One girl was upset because she had been given an advantage in a game so she could do as well as the other kids. She was fully aware that being given that advantage meant that she was failing. Funny, kids are just not as stupid as adults often think. They know what winning is, and they recognize what is given to winners. And they want what is given to winners. And what was given to winners in her school was making things harder so the other kids could catch up. And what was given to losers was they were given an advantage so they could win. Every person being given a plaque or a gold star, it turned out, didn't mean anything. It isn't the gold star that is important as much as actual success and the recognition of success by adults. My father was quite a chess player in his younger days. He studied the game intensely, and he played on the chess team in his high school and then pursued it in college. But wife, kids, job, farm, and chess ended up way down the list. He tried playing with my mother, but she was not much of a player and tired of my father joyfully beating her handily and then strutting around about it. Soon she wouldn't play. My older sister was next in line, and he taught her the game. But though she was pretty good for a 10-year-old, she wasn't really interested and clearly had other things she preferred doing. So next came me. Much to my father's delight, I turned out to like the game and mostly loved the extra attention that came along from agreeing to play. Being, as I was a child, my father started out giving me a handicap. At first, I was allowed to remove both of his rooks from the board at the start of the game. For anyone unfamiliar with chess, the rooks are powerful pieces, and the loss of both of them significantly weakened my father's position. Well, kids learn fast, and my father's chess playing probably wasn't making much progress, given that most of his chess playing was against a 9-year-old. So I started to make progress and eventually started to be an actual threat. But before I got to where I might beat him, he reduced the handicap. I could no longer take both rooks. I could only take one piece. The queen, of course, the most powerful piece on the board. That knocked me back to not really being in the running for a while. In the meantime, my father lent me all of his chess books. He handed me the daily chess problem and the paper to solve. He ran drills with me for a king to get his final pawn past the opposing king to be queened, and how to force a checkmate with a pair of rooks, and other interesting situations that came about regularly in games. In time, I was no longer allowed the queen, so it was one rook. Then I could have a knight or a bishop, then only a pawn. Always reducing the handicap before I was within range of a win. After some months, having only the handicap of his king's pawn, that too was removed, and I was even on. I played games with my sister when my dad wasn't home. Sometimes the librarian would play a game with me. I continued to run drills with my dad and practice the methods in the books. And of course, played him games nearly every night when he was home. And I slowly moved in on being able to win. But there was no more handicap to remove. I remember to this day the first time I beat him. I remember where the board was set up. I remember what I was wearing. And mostly, I remember the end of the game. His king was trapped, castled behind 3 pawns. Both a rook and his queen defended that row. I remember thinking that surely he could hear my heart beating as I moved a bishop in line with his queen. I had a visible reason for putting it there, attacking his knight, and I hoped that he would assume me young and foolish and that I didn't see that his queen could take it. Perhaps didn't realize it was undefended. He looked long at it, seemed a little too good. I held my breath, and he bit, and he took the bishop and removed his queen from defending the back row. I think he knew he was in trouble when I exhaled. I moved my rook into his back row, and he knew he'd lost. He stared long with a pronounced look of surprise. And then he took me to the country store and bought me a candy bar. Took me a long time to win again. No more trusting a seemingly foolish free bishop. It never occurred to me that there was anything wrong with the way my father did that. But when I got to college and I told people how I had learned to play chess, the nearly universal reaction was to chastise my father for not allowing me to beat him before he reduced the handicap. Why not build up my self-esteem? Didn't he want me to feel the thrill of beating him? God, I can hardly wait till they give me this tooth. How did I handle always losing? I was a kid, for God's sake. He needed to let me win. Didn't he realize he might be killing my dream of playing chess? At one point while I was in college, there was a guy in our group who was a serious chess player, master rated and all that. He would play a game with me now and again when folks were hanging out at my house. Someone asked me one time why I played him, as I always lost, which I did. Never beat that guy, not one time. Well, I pondered, I play a good game when I play him. It honestly never occurred to me to not play him just because he was better than me. Didn't do anything for my game to play people who couldn't play. Wasn't much fun either. Always seemed to me he was the one doing a favor. What meant something to me while I was learning chess with my dad was when he reduced the handicap. It meant I was becoming a threat. It meant I wasn't a kid who needed to be given both rooks anymore. It was recognition by my father that I was improving. This is not the same as saying I shouldn't have been able to succeed at all until I was good enough to play with the big boys. People do need success. The thing with my dad, though, was that only success was recognized as success. And he did give me plenty of opportunities to succeed, to win. There's a method, for instance, by which a king left with only a pawn can force a win against an opponent who only has a king, who's trying to force a draw. So to learn this, I got to be the king with a pawn. Sure, it took a few tries. Okay, several tries, many tries. But eventually, I learned how to force the opposing king to give way. And I won. Every chess problem I solved was a win. Not a big win, but a real win. My father never chastised or berated me for a bad chess game or a foolish move, something he was a little prone to in life in general. They say that people learn to not be mean to each other as kids because it is so important to kids that other kids play with them. Since kids can usually just refuse if it's not fun, they learn to be nice to the kids playing with them. My father was a little desperate for someone to play chess with him. The fact is, people don't usually need to be chastised for doing something badly. It's usually a self-punishing system. If I made a poor move, I lost a piece, or a position, or the game. He didn't need to berate me, just take the center of the board from me. When arguments are made to justify the need for kids to be rewarded the same for trying as for succeeding, the examples given are usually talking about what happens to kids when they're not rewarded for success, no matter how good they did. What happens when it's only their failures that are noticed, even the smallest ones? But there really is a whole lot of daylight between berating someone for anything short of perfection and rewarding them the same for even a small attempt at success, or even no real attempt at all. And it is in that light that real self-esteem is grown. Like many things in life, it's all about balance. There have been a number of studies that have suggested that very young children do not respond well when they do not get praise or attention equal to other kids. But the educators and parents that took this to indicate that all kids should be given the same reward seem to fail to notice that this only applies to children up to, about 4. Very young children are highly motivated to crave the attention and approval of their parents. A lot of biology there. The attention of their parents means they survive, or do not. But long-term survivability requires that kids learn to do, and do well, what they need to do to survive and thrive as adults. So while it's true that praising kids for what they are, you are smart, you are strong, you are beautiful, is not nearly as useful as rewarding effort and progress, This is different than rewarding all participants the same, no matter what the effort or the outcome. Rewarding the kids who just go through the motions the same as the kids who try hard, whose focus on achieving their goal enough to do it, discourages the kids that do try hard. Kids grow up. And when parents and educators keep trying to do what works in preschool, everyone gets a gold star. When the kids are in the second grade, what used to be good becomes bad. Kids start to develop a sense of justice by 7 or 8. Before that time, they just want to be the one that wins, because the desire to win does seem to be hardwired, and winning feels better than not. But around that age, they start to recognize the idea of what is fair, who should have gotten the reward. They start to resent the kids they feel were rewarded unfairly, and the adults that made the award. They also start to recognize when they have achieved something that should have garnered reward, and resent the fact that they did not. Even, like the girl complaining in the mall, no longer liking that unearned win that their 5-year-old self celebrated. As children get older and develop more understanding of the idea of fairness, the more the idea of everyone getting the same, no matter the input, leaves them confused about the efficacy of their efforts and what counts as progress. They may start to have a hard time being clear on the very concept of goals. Growing into adulthood, confused, unmotivated, and having neither self-esteem nor internal happiness. We often joke about the idea of whoever told you that life is fair, or that they did you a disservice in kindergarten by telling you life is fair. But the reality is that it is actually very important for young kids to be given the idea of fairness. Even though they don't really understand it at age 5, the more they see fairness and justice, the more developed their sense of fairness and justice will be when they do start to understand it. Very young kids, even infants, recognize this, even though fair at that age does mean the same. They recognize when resources are not distributed equally, and they tend to object. This is the age where everyone gets the gold star is really actually relevant. But this does not mean it's good to treat every kid the same, no matter what they do or how they act, even at that age. It means that every 3-year-old in the room should get the same size piece of pie. But not that the kid who takes the pie from their neighbor should be treated the same as the kid who lost their pie. Or that the kid who didn't pick up their plate is treated exactly like the kid who did. Rather, it means that at 4, kids do not really totally understand why the kid who won the race got an ice cream, but they did not. Point of fact, when my dad took me to get a candy bar, he brought home a candy bar for each of my sisters too. I just got to go with him. However, by the time kids are getting to be around 7 or 8, they do start to recognize that winning the race or picking up their plate should get recognition. They don't really like the fact that they didn't get recognition for not winning, but it's not really that they didn't get recognized that they don't like. It's that they didn't win. What this means is that while it is prudent to help kids understand that the world is not always fair, helping them develop real self-esteem means that relating reward directly to accomplishment, including real effort and learning from failure in a fair way, is much, much more important than making things all the same. And for parents and educators to understand that kids are not stupid. They do learn what happens with accomplishment, and they want that. Like me actually feeling excited when my father told me I didn't get a handicap anymore. Like the girl in the mall being upset at being given a special advantage in a game. Giving every kid a gold star is our collective attempt, as the mother culture, to give our children, and hence ourselves, a life of endless happiness and no discomfort. Even if we could make a world where our children, and by extension ourselves, have only ease and comfort and happy kumbayas, which reality will regularly interfere with, it doesn't work for the same reason the Buddha's father could not make him happy by creating a life of everything being good and perfect. Why God does not make us endlessly happy all the time. We are hardwired to become dissatisfied because it causes us to strive and improve things. We are built for a world that is not perfect, a world into which a little rain will fall. By embracing the difficulties, we also highlight the successes. This is not to say that one should create a life that is only hardship and refuse to enjoy the pleasures as they come. A path that the Buddha found did not bring peace and joy any more than endless pleasures did. But it does mean that complaining to God that life isn't perfect is, well, at least a waste of time. No matter how much we think we do not actually want a life of zero hardship and endless pleasure. We want a life of hardship we can handle, and joys that come regularly and brightly. It means we must learn and teach our kids to handle hardship and to recognize joy. We must learn not to be overly distressed at things not working out or to diminish our blessings because they are neither perfect nor large enough. You know, don't sweat the small stuff. Count your blessings. Sing in the rain. And if you are going through hell, keep on going. You might get out before the devil even knows you're there. Blessed be.